So the battery's about to die on the camera, but something I'm doing really quick, just as to not disconnect the hoses and have it drain everywhere. I am basically siphoning out the coolant from the radiator. Yeah, you get the idea. It's actually, I guess, kind of low now. So I wanted to take a moment and show you guys what it is that caused the demise for my turbo. Basically prematurely. In less than a year, the blades became all eroded and the turbo became unbalanced, and I'm pretty sure that's what killed the seals. But if you look at this turbo guard here, it's not a very fine mesh, and there's obviously no paper element to prevent any debris smaller than the actual mesh itself to go in. So tire smoke, road dirt, everything that could possibly get in there got in there and eroded the blades. So that's number one cause that the turbo died. It wasn't even the anti-lag that I have or anything, because the anti-lag that I have is kind of just a noise maker, and it dumps fuel. So if you're gonna run a turbo guard, you better run one only if you really have to. The only reason I ran this one is because the water neck is right there. It really took some finagling to get that 45 off there and 45 and then the intake. Just a heads up, they even tell you themselves, but I kind of thought it would be okay, but it's not. So that's another expense that I need to spend. I'm gonna pull the bumper off right now, and the way I pull my bumper off is I have these two zip ties holding the front of the bumper, so I'm just gonna cut that. I don't know where my dikes are, so I have to use a blade, which isn't working very well right now. Okay, so that's off, I think. Yeah, that's off. Okay, over here on the sides, yes, Callie, over here on the sides, I have these quick release mounts, or quick release latches. These are about $50 a piece, but they're super convenient because you don't have to sit there and do a zip tie. Okay, bumper's off, exposing everything we've got up front. Shout out to Teardown Performance. This intercooler that I have now is from Teardown themselves. They have a lot of different intercoolers that you can run, rated for different horsepower numbers and everything. This one is specifically rated for, I think, 650 wheel horsepower, and she just pushed me. So I'm having a little bit of trouble draining the radiator with the siphoning deal. So what I'm going to do is, now that I have a majority of the fluid out of the radiator itself, I'm going to start to disconnect the lower hose. Hopefully this doesn't get too messy. It tends to be because the water sprays everywhere. I would have preferred to do this outside, but whatever, car's in the garage. So I got the lower pipe loose, and now it's dripping down onto the oil catch that I have down here. Callie, what are you doing? What are you doing? When I separated, I had a sudden burst of water splash down, and it wet my socks. Ugh. It's literally the worst feeling ever, getting your socks wet. So here you can see the massive difference between the two radiators. So this is going to be the new radiator setup, along with two 10-inch fans that run basically at this angle here. So one will be feeding the top portion over here, one will be feeding the bottom portion. Initially I wanted to run it the other way, so the hottest coolant is getting cooled priority, but it'll go across, so it'll work out. So here's a comparison. This is a much smaller radiator, obviously, but what's going to happen is I'm going to have a bigger shroud, because this shroud covers the entire radiator, but the spacing between the blades and the actual fin surface is too close. So it's not, this shroud isn't as efficient as it should be. So you might as well just strap the radiator, the fan to the radiator, and it's just not that great. So this will work. I'm gonna have probably about an inch or so of a shroud, and that will create a massive low pressure area through the radiator. So I'm gonna put this up front, see what I can manage to fit, and see how it looks. And also, with the radiator out, you can see how much more space I have. Because the initial radiator was slanted at an angle, it took up a lot of space. So I'm gonna see how this radiator fits now, and I'll possibly be able to mount a condenser behind it. Actually, it'll probably have to be in front of it. So I'll give it some space for the condenser and all that. So here's what I've got so far. Radiator temporarily set in place. I'll have to see how I mount a whatchamacallit, a condenser, but I have enough space, so I'm sure I'll figure something out. The two fans, I'm gonna have to figure out how I'm gonna mount that. It's probably gonna be, instead of the 1 inch or whatever, it'll probably be about 3/4 of an inch of a gap, and then between the blade and the fins themselves, it should be over an inch. And given that it's two fans pulling, it should definitely help. Another thing that I'm gonna do is set the water tank probably somewhere over here, feeding into a hose that's gonna run along the top of the radiator and mist cool water down. So once everything's all together, I'll probably make a shroud that'll wrap across the front here and across, so that way all the airflow forces through the radiator rather than goes up on top. I think that's all I'm gonna do for tonight. I'm probably gonna, actually tomorrow, I'll pull the radiator out, which it's just set in there, so I'll just pull it out. Make a template so I can make a fan shroud and run those two fans. So that's tomorrow's project.